Welcome back to DC Today. Deon Hampton is no stranger to the show. He's an investigative reporter with the Cincinnati Enquirer. Today, he's here to tell us about a recent video that has surfaced which paints the police in a different light. Well, we'll let him explain. Welcome, Deon, to DC Today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
You know, it feels like every day we're seeing protests grow and get louder, demanding change. In Cincinnati, you know, there was even praise for the police department of their handling of the protesters. But recently some video has surfaced and you're telling us something a little bit different.
Yeah, correct. So the article that I worked on kind of like questioned what it was, questioned how the police department handled detaining a lot of the protesters. Because there's a question of whether or not there was maybe over-aggressive officers who went after the protesters, or maybe even in some cases excessive use of force. So you're right, the police department did get a lot of praise. The mayor walked into City Hall last week and got a standing ovation, but some of the videos that I've seen maybe prove differently.
Really? And so have you been hearing from protesters that it's a little bit different out there than what's being projected?
Well, it's not as difficult here as it is in places like Atlanta, but what I can tell you is on some of the videos, okay, you saw police officers tasing people. In one case, there was an instance where there was a tattoo shop owner who was literally, he wasn't protesting, he was standing outside of his tattoo shop. The officers came in and asked him to move out the way as they tried to push back protesters. Well, in that, when he tried to move out the way, he tripped. For whatever reason, an officer pulled out a taser gun and shot him with the taser gun. And of course, he fell down, he went limp. And there's multiple cases like this where people all around Cincinnati are talking about, were the police officers over aggressive or using excessive force while trying to detain people, or just going after regular people who had nothing, who weren't even involved in the protest whatsoever.
Okay, to play devil's advocate, when all of this is going on, sometimes it's hard to decide who's a protester and who may be a shop owner. Do you give them any benefit of the doubt?
Well, I can give them some benefit of the doubt, but in cases like that where it's clear that just an innocent bystander isn't demonstrating, then it's kind of hard to justify that type of use of force. In other cases, you know, on a video and eyewitness account by several journalists here in town, me included, there were protesters with their hands up. And a police officer, different officers would literally come and then pepper spray those people, those individuals. I'm not sure that's the right thing to do either. When I started looking at the policies that the Cincinnati Police Department has, you know, they have different sections under policy. Crowd control, de-escalation methods. Like, I didn't see a lot of de-escalation going on. For instance, in one instance, when the protests were completely over, I saw the police department, and on video, it's seen the police department shooting projectiles and tear gas at groups of protesters who were no longer even protesting. Like, the policy says that you cannot shoot tear gas and non-lethal projectiles at people when they no longer pose a threat. And not only that, but when you do disseminate those type of irritants.
Deon, you say that there's kind of been like this David versus Goliath mentality involving even tanks you may see in Afghanistan. What's going on with that?
Yeah, again, it's another question that's being posed to the police department is there a militarization of the police here in Cincinnati? Because at the height of the George Floyd protests, we have protesters who were throwing rocks and bottles at the police officers, and in some cases, even provoking the police department. Okay, a lot of people can get that. What a lot of people can't wrap their mind around is you have an officer with a helmet on and a shield and a bulletproof vest, and then you call in a military tank that you would use like in Afghanistan. And then you would see this military tank just drive through the Clifton Heights section near the University of Cincinnati, that whole neighborhood. So it kind of makes it seem like a war zone. And get the fact that protesters are throwing water bottles, and in some cases they urinated in those water bottles and threw it at the police. But they have a lot of protective gear. So then you call in a tank that you would use if we're going to war against Iraq. And so there's a lot of periodicals out there. There's a lot of academic journals out there. There's one that was authored in 2018 by a professor at the University of Princeton that says when you do that type of thing, it actually brings more harm to the neighborhood than good, because it creates a level of fear and distrust between the community and the police department.
Okay, hold that thought. We want to talk about, since this video did resurface or surface, that now there may be some disciplinary actions against the police department. So everybody stay around. We're going to talk more with Deon when we come back.